Hugh. Mr. Trump is being rather more conciliatory in another big dispute he's involved in. His Treasury Secretary and China's Vice Premier are in London today for talks on trying to resolve the trade war between the two countries. After President Trump hiked US tariffs on Chinese goods to more than 100%, President Xi did the same. But there was some agreement at talks in Geneva last month, which ended with some levies being reduced for 90 days, and Mr. Trump and Mr. Xi spoke last week. Big differences persist, though, specifically on rare earth minerals and computer chips. Let's get more from our business reporter, Jonathan Josephs. Jonathan, so rare earth metals and computer chips seemingly the sticking points.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. Those are the latest sticking points in these ongoing strains between the US and China, which are, of course, the world's two biggest economies. And it's a strain that threatens global economic growth. What we've got today is the latest round of trade talks happening here in London. And the two sides have come together to try and resolve some of the differences that arose from that meeting in Geneva last month. At that meeting in Geneva, they made some good progress in terms of tariffs, with US tariffs on Chinese products coming down to 30% and Beijing slashing its levies on US imports to 10%, whilst they found some room to try and negotiate further. But those are on pause for 90 days at those levels, subject to trying to resolve some of the other issues, which centre, as you say, around computer chips and rare earth metals. Rare earth metals are essential to the global economy in lots of modern technology, from smartphones to refrigerators, electric vehicles and wind turbines. So you really can't do without them. But China controls global supplies. It has about 70% of the world's mining capacity and about 90% of refining capacity. And without it allowing more exports, America and its manufacturing ambitions and its companies are in something of a difficulty. Over the weekend, China did say it would increase the amount of export licenses it would grant, so a sign of some movement there. In return, we know that China wants more access to high-end US computer chips and other technology, and that remains to be seen whether that will happen. But we do know that Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary, is at these talks in London, and it's his department that is in charge of US export controls. So there is a sign that perhaps there might be some movement there.
This is hurting both economies, but the differences are much more than just economics, aren't they?
Absolutely. I think these are huge differences about the way these two countries do business, because what we've heard also, apart from tariffs from President Trump, is about access to the Chinese economy for American companies. He thinks it's not sufficient. China, though, is trying to use its leverage. Its ambition is to really dominate the world economy. They both want to have huge influence in other countries and in the geopolitics that comes with that, from having that economic clout. But we do know from the latest figures that have come out today that Chinese exports to the US have dropped 34.5% on an annualized basis in May. That's in dollar terms. It's a big drop, the biggest in quite a few years. So it's a sign that, exporters are having to think again about whether it's viable to send products to the US, because what remains is a lot of volatility in this relationship as both sides try to dominate influence in terms of the trade relationship with each other, but also around the world in other spheres. There is a lot of volatility. We know from what's happened that President Trump could change things at any moment, and President Xi has to try and come to some kind of agreement with him through their mediators here in London.
Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan Josephs. According to the Ukrainian military, Russia has launched one of its biggest overnight barrages of missiles and drones since the start of President Putin's full-scale invasion